Hello and welcome back to the Confidentially Insecure podcast. This is episode 3. Some of you guys know I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so if this was a Star Wars film, then it would have to be Revenge of the Sith. It's one of my favourite Star Wars films. It's not my absolute favourite, as my absolute favourite is undoubtedly The Empire Strikes Back, so that's episode 5. But of the ones that have been made fairly recently, this is up there. One of the main reasons why I like Revenge of the Sith quite so much is I'm a big fan of character development, and I think the character of Anakin is somebody who I've identified with a lot, especially growing up and even now still. So it does, that character development and that journey that he goes on during this film does link a little bit to this podcast. No, it doesn't mean that I'm about to go out and murder the younglings. I don't think that would be really advisable for anybody. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just fill you in really quickly on what's been going on behind the scenes here at Confidentially Insecure. So, I've had multiple meetings this week, which is really nice. The first one I had was Tuesday this week about how I'm going to grow this as a business. I came up with some really great ideas. It was successful. Just trying to get more listeners. He did ask me to do something which was slightly unusual. He asked me to write a little mission statement about what I want to achieve with this podcast. So, in the interest of honesty, I'm gonna let you guys in on what I wrote. So here we go. This is what I'm trying to achieve. So, Confidentially Insecure is a podcast focusing on the health and well-being of young people. The goal is to normalise the conversation about mental health in young people, and in particular, young men. How we aim to achieve this is by having open and honest conversations with a wide variety of people about their lives and about how mental health impacts on them. Mental health is at the heart of Confidentially Insecure. However, it's never supposed to provide any answers. It's simply the coming together of ordinary people in a relaxed setting to discuss issues that they have faced and provide support to people who may be struggling. This is an ordinary podcast for the ordinary person that just might have extraordinary results. I appreciate that last bit does sound really cheesy, but I think it's something that I can get behind. I quite like it as a little catchphrase, so I might start using it a little bit more. So yeah, it was nice to put into paper what I'm effectively trying to do. He does like the idea, and we have a follow-up meeting next week to discuss what the next steps are. So I'm excited, but I'm also really nervous because I started this only 2 weeks ago, and it feels like the ball's rolling pretty quickly on it. I'm devoting a fair amount of my time to it, so hopefully you guys are enjoying it and you keep enjoying it, and hopefully we can grow this to be something that's worth shouting about. And then I had a second meeting, which was equally positive. If I sound a little bit nicer, then that's down to one man. I had a long chat with Adam Redman, who I know through Frisbee. He does lots of audio. He does audio at university, audio and something. I'm not sure what. Sorry, Adam. I'm sure you can fill me in next time you see me about what it is that you actually study. But he sat down for about 2 hours, and he very kindly helped me understand a little bit more about how audio actually works, which was really kind of him, especially after a long day at work. So big shout out to Adam. I'll get you a beer at some stage, mate. Just to say thank you. If anyone is enjoying this podcast and you see me out and about at a Frisbee event, or not even at a Frisbee event, do buy me a beer. I'm always up for a beer, and I like free beer. So if you are enjoying it and you do think I'm doing something worthwhile, a beer would never go amiss. Anyway, following on from this meeting, I sort of sat down and I thought to myself, I was listening to a podcast with Ben Francis. So if you don't know who Ben Francis is, he's the CEO of Gymshark, effectively, and he spoke about one of the privileges of his job is speaking to people who know lots more about things in his business that he does. And I'm not comparing this to Gymshark in any way. If it ever gets anywhere close to Gymshark, I'll be amazed. But I felt a little bit of what he was on about there, because I've had multiple conversations with multiple people who know a lot more about me, about their subject than I do, and I feel incredibly privileged to learn. So thank you to Adam and to Paul, but I don't think Paul will be listening. Adam might be. So yeah, big thank you. Now I feel like I should get on with the episode itself. So it's quite a big question, this. The episode's entitled "Do I Like Myself?" It's going to be a bit of a weird episode. I've thought about doing it all week, this episode, and I've put off sitting here and recording it, so that's why this episode is going to be a bit late out. Sorry if you wanted it a little earlier, but it's just I didn't want to not do it justice, because I think I'm only ever going to get one shot to do this episode. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be quite a weird experience. I'm pretty nervous to do it, but hopefully we'll all be okay in the end. So where did the inspiration for this episode come? We, the Frisbee team that is, had an ultimate tournament this weekend, and I was trying to promote this because this is all I do at the moment. Really, is just try and get more people to listen to me ramble on about mental health, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So if you are enjoying it, then sharing it's still huge. I'm going to keep banging on about it almost in every episode. So if you haven't shared it, please do. And I was speaking about it, and somebody piped up that it's a really sensitive and nice thing that I'm trying to do, and then they followed it up with, and that's just not really you. And initially, I just sort of laughed it off, and then I thought, hang on, there's a really interesting episode in that statement. So I'm just going to unpack that a little bit more. It's not the first time that this has been mentioned. My dad gets at me all the time, and an example of this would be New Year's Day just gone. I was clearly at home for New Year. We were walking around. We went to the beach. We went for a walk at the beach because I don't live that far from the beach. Back at home, so we went for a little walk, and we bumped into somebody from my old work, and this was my work from like a long while ago. This was coming up for 4 years ago now, which makes you feel a little old. And we bumped into them, and I started having a chat with them because that's what you do. You update each other on your lives when you see people like that. And my dad didn't know who they were, so he stayed pretty quiet. But he was always sort of within earshot of what we were saying. And we had a brief conversation. I didn't think I thought it was fine, and we were walking off. This was just me and my dad afterwards. And he goes, "You turn into somebody very different when you're speaking to people of your own age, effectively, of people that you work with. You turn into a little bit of," and his quote was, "a bit of a jackal lad," and that's not really you. And to which I got quite immediately quite defensive, and I was like, no, I disagree. I think I'm like this with everybody. And he was pretty adamant that I wasn't. And we discussed this at a decent length on the rest of the walk, effectively. And a period of time passed, and I sort of just brushed it off and put it to the back of my mind. But I think if I'm ever that immediately defensive about something, it's probably because there is a little bit of truth in that, and I do think I'm very, very much guilty of wearing one face to a certain group of people, and wearing a different face to another section of the population. And then it came up again earlier, literally just earlier today, because we had a few hours to kill, so we went to the student union. And I can't even remember how it actually came out. That's how I was just thinking about how I can relate this into this episode, because I sort of took myself out of the situation a little bit. Firstly, the timing was absolutely impeccable because I wanted to do this episode. It gave me that last bit of motivation for me to actually sit down and record it and be really open and be really honest and be really authentic with you guys. And I'm pretty good. I sort of just laughed at myself, and I laughed at what was going on, because I'm pretty good at laughing at myself. I don't take things to heart too much, especially not outwardly. I mean, I am now doing a podcast about it, so jokes on me. Maybe I do actually take things to heart a little bit more than I first think that I do. And to be fair to everyone who was there, it was never malicious. It always felt like it was just mates joking around in the pub, which I'm a huge advocate for. I think if you can get a load of your mates around, have a few beers, have a few laughs, maybe at each other's expense, maybe not at each other's expense. I think the act of laughing, the act of having a beer is more important. So I'm not in any way I'm not in any way frustrated with the whole situation, but I do think it's worth speaking about, especially to this. Um, but there is no smoke without fire, and it all came back again, and it came back at the weekend with the conversation I had with my dad over the Christmas break. So it's all well and good to say that I've got these multiple faces that I wear to in different situations, but I think mainly it's more important to work out and analyze why I do this. So that's what I'm gonna do a little bit more of now. I think it's undoubtedly true that outwardly and in groups with certain individuals, I become quite laddie, and that's mainly the frisbee team. It's highlighted in the fact that I was voted in the Christmas Awards to be most likely to turn up to training hungover. Um, and I'm aware that it is only the frisbee scenario, and in that sense, I'm quite a big fish in a small pond. Um, but if I go back to the origins of why it's first started out like this, because it's been like this for as certainly as long as I've been at university, and I think it all started as a 20-year-old kid moving to university and being completely and utterly insecure in my own personality. So I big up the areas of my personality that I think I'm quite good at. I'm generally quite funny. I'm generally quite a good communicator. I'm generally quite witty. Um, so if I can highlight those things, then that's we're going to make more friends in the long run. I think that's kind of how I justified it. Um, I've just taken a little pause there because I'm just trying to recompose myself. I mean, I've edited it out so you won't hear it, but just if I've lost my train of thought, that's why. I'm trying to not beat myself up about it though, and I think that's the main thing. I'm aware of it, and it's something that I undoubtedly want to change about myself and how I'm portrayed. Essentially, I want it to be part of me, but not all of me. And at the moment, I think it definitely is in some people's eyes. That's all that I am, and that's disappointing. However, as I said in my statement, I don't want this podcast to give anybody any solutions about. I mean, if you're struggling with this in your own life, I don't want this to impact how you're coping with it in your personal life. I'm just going to share with you the strategy that I've started trying to imply. So the strategy is to be aware of when I'm slipping into a facade that I'm not 100% comfortable with, but not really to be critical of myself for doing it. Because I don't think beating yourself up about something like this is gonna be beneficial, especially to myself. So, and today I got it wrong. Today I sort of just joined in, and I think I got a little bit too unkind to myself, especially mentally. I don't think I really vocalised it, but that was certainly what was going on in between my sort of in my head at least. And this idea of being aware but not critical is something that I've got from meditating. I've recently started meditating essentially, so in about 4 weeks' time, when I don't really have an idea for a podcast, I can talk about the journey to me starting meditating, how I found it, and the like. So look forward to that. And the big thing in that is to be aware of yourself and to be aware of thoughts that come into your head whilst you're sat there for 10 minutes being nice and quiet, but not to be too critical of yourself for drifting away and just noticing it and moving forward and going, okay, that's not something that I need to be thinking of at the moment, so I'm going to try and stop thinking about that. And as you guys know, I'm a big quote guy, so back to the idea of having two faces, I'm going to use a Nathaniel Hawthorne quote from The Scarlet Letter, which is a brilliant book. I think if you take anything from this, read The Scarlet Letter, because it's a very 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 interesting book, and he sums it up perfectly. And he goes something like this: so no man for any considerable period can wear one face to himself and another to the multitude without finally getting bewildered as to which may be the true. And that says it all again, like the Matt Haig quote did last week. It says everything that I'm trying to say in this episode of the podcast. So appreciate, and I think everybody does to an extent, act in different ways around different people. But make sure that you're not digging yourself into a hole which is a little bit difficult to break out of, because that is something that I think I've done multiple times in my life, and maybe I've done it a little bit here, and I've sort of just tied myself to an image at this stage and an identity, which is not really one that I'm particularly proud of. So, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it, as I said earlier, and I feel like I'm repeating myself now, because if I'm hypercritical of myself and I say, Sam, that's awful. What you're going to do? You're such a bad person. I'm going to keep trying to do the things that make me happy, and I'm going to try and make other people a little bit happier. But I'm still going to have a laugh, and I'm still going to enjoy myself. I just need to readdress the balance a little bit. I think I'm gonna wrap up now, because it's been quite an emotional chat, especially on my side. It's something that I've wanted to talk about, but I didn't really know how. And then I started the podcast, and then all of this happened this week, and it was like, okay, this is the moment to speak about it. I did have a guest lined up for next week, but they've unfortunately pulled out, which is fine. I'm not holding anything against them on that front. Um, but amazingly, somebody else has come in and said, you know what, I'd quite like to come on, and I'd like to have a conversation with you about various different things. So I'm looking forward to that. It might be out for next week's episode, but then again, it might not be as well. So we will see. I'd like to think it would be, but I do have a lot of work on at the moment. I've got two deadlines coming in next week, so it might be another episode, because clearly the episodes by myself are really quite easy and quite quick to record, and having somebody else on, I have to think about questions, think about topics that we want to cover, and then I've got to edit two people's voices and balance everything for more than one person, which is clearly a bit more of a faff. So it might be out as next week's episode, or be the one after, and I'll fill another thing for next week. So it will be out again Friday. Keep following it, keep liking it, keep sharing it. Confidentially insecure, all lowercase on Instagram. Let's keep it rolling, because I'm so pleased with the growth that we've had so far, and I think it's if we can keep going, we've really got something here. So keep liking it, keep sharing it, keep your mental health as a priority, and I'll see you again next week.